After a wild night at a friend's wedding, I woke up next to a stranger who whispered, "Last night was unforgettable." Panicked, I said, "This can't happen again." He replied, "Then why did you save my number?" My best friend noticed my anxiety and asked, "Did something happen last night?" I knew my secret was too big to hide forever. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to cheat. I used to think people who did it were selfish, weak, or just plain terrible. I believed in loyalty. I believed in commitment. I believed I was a good person. But one night in Chicago, I made the worst mistake of my life. And now, I'm stuck in a mess of guilt and lies with no way out. It started at my best friend Mike's wedding. It was a beautiful summer evening, held at a rooftop venue overlooking the Chicago skyline. Fairy lights strung across the terrace, jazz music playing softly as people laughed, drank, and danced. It should have been perfect. My boyfriend, Nathan, was supposed to come. But a last-minute work thing popped up, and he couldn't make it. He told me to have fun, text him if I needed anything, and that he'd make it up to me. I was disappointed, but I told myself it was fine. I'd be surrounded by friends. I could still enjoy myself. And I did. Maybe too much. The drinks were strong. The music was good. The energy of the night was infectious. I was surrounded by old friends, people I hadn't seen in years. It felt like being in college again, carefree, loud, wild. One drink turned into 3, which turned into 5. I stopped keeping track. That's when I met him. Jason. I didn't notice him at first, but at some point, he was just there. Tall, dark hair, sharp jawline, confident in a way that made people naturally gravitate toward him. He wasn't just good-looking, he was charming. The kind of guy who could make you feel like the most interesting person in the room. At first, it was nothing. Just casual small talk. He made a joke about the open bar, I laughed. We talked about the wedding, the bride and groom, how weddings always seem to make people do stupid things. I didn't even think twice about it. But then the conversation lingered. I don't know when the shift happened, but suddenly, I was hyper-aware of him. The way he leaned in when I spoke, like he actually cared about what I was saying. The way his hand would brush against my arm, just barely, sending this electric jolt through me. The way he looked at me, really looked at me, like I was someone worth noticing. It felt dangerous. It felt exciting. I should have walked away. I should have shut it down. But I didn't. One moment, we were laughing on the dance floor. The next, I was waking up in a hotel room with Jason lying beside me. My head was pounding. My mouth was dry. My dress was on the floor. Panic hit me like a brick. Jason stirred beside me, stretching, his voice rough from sleep. Last night was unforgettable. I wanted to throw up. I bolted upright, my hands shaking as I reached for my phone. 6:48 a.m. Messages from Nathan. Hope you had fun last night. Miss you. Call me when you wake up. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. My hands were clammy. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely hear over it. I needed to get out of there. I grabbed my dress, my shoes, clutching them to my chest as I stumbled toward the door. Jason propped himself up on his elbow, watching me with a lazy smirk. Leaving so soon. I couldn't even look at him. I felt like my skin was on fire. This can't happen again. He chuckled. Then why did you save my number? My breath caught. I glanced at my phone. Sure enough, his name was in my contacts. Jason, wedding. I didn't remember saving it. Maybe I had. Maybe he had. It didn't matter. I couldn't be here. I rushed out, my heels clicking against the hotel hallway floor, my dress still half unzipped as I fumbled for my phone to call an Uber. I kept telling myself it was just a stupid mistake. One night. One reckless, drunken mistake. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. When I got home, I spent an hour in the shower, scrubbing my skin raw, like I could somehow wash away what I had done. But the guilt stayed. It sat in my chest like a weight, heavy and suffocating. Nathan called. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't talk to him. Not yet. When I finally worked up the nerve to text him, I kept it short. Hey, sorry, super hungover. Gonna sleep it off. Call you later, more lies. I met up with my best friend Sarah for brunch that afternoon. She took one look at me and frowned. Why do you look like you just committed a crime? I forced a laugh. Just hungover. She stirred her coffee, studying me. Did something happen last night? My pulse spiked. No, another lie. She raised an eyebrow but didn't push it. I should have told her. I should have told someone. But saying it out loud would make it real. And I wasn't ready for that. Nathan FaceTimed me that night. I answered, forcing a smile. Hey, babe. You okay? You seem off. I swallowed hard. Just tired. He smiled. Wish I could have been there. Bet you looked beautiful. My stomach turned. My throat tightened. Yeah. I missed you. I wanted to cry. For the next few days, I threw myself into work, trying to pretend everything was normal. But it wasn't. Because Jason was texting me. I should have ignored him. I should have blocked him. I didn't. I told myself it was just to make sure he wouldn't say anything. That I needed to keep things under control. But that wasn't the truth. I liked the attention. I hated myself for it. Nathan started noticing I was acting weird. I was distant, distracted. Are you okay? He asked one night while we were watching TV. I forced a smile. Yeah, just work stress. Another lie. I thought I could keep it together. I thought I could pretend like it never happened. But secrets don't stay buried forever. And mine was already starting to crack. A week passed. Then 2. I tried to go back to normal, but normal didn't exist anymore. Nathan sensed it. He wasn't the kind of guy to pry, but I could see it in the way he looked at me. Like he was trying to solve a puzzle, except I was the missing piece and I refused to give myself up. Sarah wasn't buying my excuses either. You're acting weird, she said one night over drinks. Like, really weird. I'm fine. She leaned in, staring at me. No, you're not. I shrugged. I've been busy. She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. This is about that night, isn't it? My breath caught. What? The wedding. I knew something was off when I saw you the next day. I swallowed. My palms were sweaty. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure she could hear it. I don't know what you're talking about. She exhaled, rubbing her temples. Look, I don't know what happened, but if you did something, you need to figure it out before it destroys you. I laughed it off. Told her she was being dramatic. But she was right. The weight of my secret was suffocating. And then Jason made it worse. It was a random Thursday when I got the message. Jason, thinking about you. I froze. Stared at the screen. My hands felt cold, my stomach twisting itself into knots. I should have ignored it. I should have deleted it. Instead, I typed back. Don't text me. The dots appeared. Jason, if that's what you wanted, you would have blocked me by now. My hands clenched into fists. I didn't respond. But I didn't block him either. That Saturday, Nathan and I went out for dinner. A cute Italian place downtown, candlelit tables, soft music playing in the background. He was trying. I could see it. I feel like we haven't had a real date in weeks, he said, smiling as he poured me a glass of wine. I forced myself to smile back. Yeah, this is nice. For a second, I almost felt okay. Until I saw him. Jason. Across the restaurant. Sitting at the bar. Watching me. My blood ran cold. My grip tightened around the wine glass. He smirked. Raised his glass in a mock toast. I felt like I was going to be sick. Nathan noticed my reaction. You okay? I snapped my gaze back to him. Forced a laugh. Yeah. Thought I saw someone I knew. Nathan turned, looking over his shoulder. Who? Panic shot through me. No one. Just. I was wrong. Jason was still watching. Amused. Like he knew exactly what he was doing. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus. The air felt too thick, too heavy. I needed to get out. I excused myself to the bathroom, gripping the sink, taking deep breaths. Then my phone buzzed. Jason, you look beautiful tonight. I gripped the edge of the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. He was playing with me. I should have walked out there and told Nathan everything. But I didn't. I went back to the table. Sat down. Smiled like nothing was wrong. Because I was a coward. The next day, I told myself I needed to cut Jason off for good. I was about to block him when another message came through. Jason, meet me. One time. Then I'll leave you alone. I should have ignored it. But I didn't. I met him. Not at a bar. Not at a hotel. At a coffee shop. A public place. When I walked in, he was already there, a smirk playing on his lips. I knew you'd come. I sat down, my hands shaking under the table. This has to stop. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he was trying to figure out. Why? I blinked. What do you mean, why? You don't regret it as much as you say you do. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. That's not true. Jason leaned in. Then why haven't you blocked me? I couldn't answer. Because deep down, I knew he was right. And that terrified me. The meeting ended with me storming out, but the damage was done. I went home, feeling sick with myself. That night, Nathan and I were lying in bed, and he pulled me close, kissing my forehead. I love you, he whispered. I froze. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't sure if I deserved it. Or worse, if I still felt the same way. And that scared me more than anything. I told myself that was it. No more Jason. No more texts. No more stupid decisions. I blocked his number the next morning. I deleted every message, every call, every trace of him from my phone. I was done. For a while, things almost felt normal again. Nathan and I fell back into our routine. Work, dinner, lazy weekends on the couch. I convinced myself I had dodged a bullet. That I had gotten away with it. Then the flowers arrived. A huge bouquet of white roses, sitting on my desk at work. My stomach dropped. There was a note. Did you really think it would be that easy? Jay, I felt like I couldn't breathe. My coworker, Lacey, leaned over my cubicle. Wow, someone's romantic. Nathan? I forced a smile, my hands shaking as I grabbed the card and shoved it into my purse. Yeah. Nathan. I was going to kill Jason. I left work early, drove straight to his apartment, and banged on his door. He opened it, smirking like he'd been expecting me. You look good when you're angry. I shoved past him, slamming the door behind me. What the hell is wrong with you? He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I don't like being ignored. Well, get used to it. He sighed, shaking his head. You keep pretending like you want me out of your life, but you don't. I laughed bitterly. You're insane. He stepped closer. Am I? I swallowed hard, suddenly too aware of how close he was. How intoxicating his presence still felt. No. I wasn't doing this again. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me cold. I wonder what Nathan would think if he knew where you were right now. I spun around, rage and fear bubbling up inside me. Are you threatening me? He smirked. Relax. I'm just pointing out the obvious. You came to me. I didn't even have words. I just turned and walked out. I told myself it was over. But Jason wasn't done with me yet. The secret gets out a week later, Sarah called. We need to talk. Her voice was tense, clipped. We met at a quiet cafe. The moment I sat down, she slid her phone across the table. Explain this. My stomach twisted into knots. It was a screenshot. A text. From an unknown number. Ask your best friend about Jason. My whole body went cold. Sarah's face was unreadable. I didn't know what to think at first. But then I started putting things together. The way you acted after the wedding. The weird mood swings. The lies. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. She exhaled, shaking her head. How long? I looked down, shame burning my skin. It was just that night. Silence. Then, her voice, barely above a whisper. Does Nathan know? I swallowed. No, Sarah let out a humorless laugh. So, you're just going to keep lying to him? I buried my face in my hands. I don't know what to do. She sighed. Well, you better figure it out. Because whoever sent this text. They're not done. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I woke up to a message from an unknown number. Tick-tock. And attached, a photo of me and Jason at the coffee shop. My heart nearly stopped. My hands shook as I stared at the image. It wasn't anything incriminating, we were just talking. But the way Jason was leaning in, the way I looked at him, it was enough. I needed to tell Nathan. Now. Before someone else did. But I was too late. That night, Nathan came home, his face pale, his hands clenched into fists. Who the hell is Jason? Everything inside me shattered. I tried to play dumb. What? He threw his phone onto the table. I got a message. From some random number. They sent me pictures. Texts. I couldn't breathe. Nathan, don't. Just don't. His voice cracked. His eyes were filled with something I had never seen before, pure devastation. I had destroyed him. I had destroyed everything. And I still didn't know who was pulling the strings. But I was about to find out. I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might stop. Nathan was shaking. His hands, his voice, his whole body. He wasn't the kind of man who lost control, but right now, he looked like he was holding himself together by a thread. Tell me the truth. His voice was hoarse, raw. Did you sleep with him? I should have said it right away. But I hesitated. And in that split second, I watched something in his eyes break. Nathan, yes or no? I looked down. My silence was the only answer he needed. He let out a sharp breath, staggering back like I had physically hit him. Jesus Christ. I reached for him. Nathan, please, he jerked away. Don't touch me. Tears burned my eyes. It was a mistake. He laughed. A bitter, humorless sound. A mistake? He dragged a hand through his hair, pacing. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is sending a text to the wrong person. Sleeping with some asshole while I'm at home thinking you love me? That's not a mistake. That's a choice. I was crying now. I know. I've get up, Nathan. But I swear, it didn't mean anything. His face twisted in pain. That doesn't make it better. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then, barely above a whisper, he asked, how long? I swallowed hard. Just that night. He let out a slow, shaky breath. And the texts? The meetings? My stomach twisted. It wasn't, don't fking lie to me. His voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. You think I'm stupid? You think I didn't notice you pulling away? Checking your phone every 2 seconds? You were never going to tell me, were you? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Nathan shook his head, laughing bitterly. Unbelievable. I felt like I was drowning. I love you. He stared at me, his expression unreadable. Then, in the coldest voice I had ever heard from him, he said, no, you don't. My whole body went numb. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. Nathan, please. My voice cracked. Don't leave. He didn't look back. I don't even know who you are anymore. The door slammed shut. And just like that, he was gone. I don't remember how long I stood there. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. I kept expecting him to come back. He didn't. I called Sarah. She answered on the first ring. He knows. My voice was barely a whisper. A heavy silence. Then, I'll be right there. She showed up 20 minutes later. I was still sitting on the couch, staring at the floor, my eyes burning but empty. Sarah didn't say anything at first. She just sat beside me, handing me a glass of water. I took a shaky sip. I lost him. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Yeah. You probably did. I flinched. But I deserved that. Do you regret it? She asked. I nodded immediately. Of course I do. She tilted her head. Do you? Or do you just regret getting caught? I opened my mouth to argue, but then I stopped. Because I didn't know the answer. And that terrified me. Nathan didn't come home that night. Or the next. I called. I texted. Nothing. Then, 2 days later, I got a message. Nathan, we need to talk. We met at a park, somewhere public, somewhere neutral. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. I barely recognized him. I need to know one thing, he said, his voice eerily calm. Why? I swallowed hard. I don't know. That's bullshit. I exhaled shakily. I was drunk. I was stupid. No, he cut me off, eyes burning. You don't just cheat because you're drunk. You cheat because something inside you wants to. I didn't know what to say. He nodded slowly, like he had finally figured something out. That's what I thought. I panicked. Nathan, please, I loved you. His voice cracked. God, I was so fking in love with you. Tears blurred my vision. I love you too. He smiled sadly. Not enough. That's when I knew. It was over. Nathan moved out a week later. He didn't scream, didn't break things, didn't drag it out. He just packed his bags and left. Sarah stayed by my side, but it wasn't the same. She didn't say it, but I knew. She was disappointed in me. I was disappointed in me. And Jason? I never saw him again. I got one last text. Jason, told you it wasn't that easy. I deleted it without replying. But the damage was already done. It's been 6 months. Nathan hasn't spoken to me since. Sometimes I see him on social media, living his life, smiling, moving on. And I wonder if he ever thinks about me. If he ever wonders why I did it. Hell, I wonder why I did it. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I was broken in ways I didn't even understand. Or maybe I just didn't love him the way I thought I did. That's the part that hurts the most. Not that I lost him. But that I ruined him. And for what? I still don't have the answer. Maybe I never will.